Guys, I hope that you're doing well. We have a new friend with us today, Jeff, and you guys know Skylar and Jimmy and me already, but Jeff has been a longtime supporter of the YouTube shows. When I first heard from you, Jeff, you kept leaving comments and then came over and hung out at Rivian Stories a little bit, and so you've been a great supporter of the show. We had been talking a little bit about policy in the last few weeks, and then I came to know that you have a pretty good handle on policy. Skylar has a bit of a handle on policy, living in Texas. Jimmy and I have no handles on policy at all. So I still got Jimmy to be a good sport and come on with me. You and I can team up on these two and just ask questions. I was going to kind of come at it from a sense of, tell me the main characters in the story, the main players on the ball field here. And I know that they might be consumers, auto manufacturers, franchise like dealerships, and then state legislature. I mean, I might have just named the four main characters. So maybe I know the answer to one question. But can you and or Skylar, Scott and Jimmy, you might jump in here too. Can you tell me what each one of those players wants? And I guess I know what the manufacturers want. They want to sell, and the consumers want to get a car. So then the conflict's going to come from the dealers and state legislature and having some beef with that somehow. So set it up for us, I guess. And Skylar, you can jump into this too.
Well, tell you what, I mean, I'll start a little bit, and it's just that, especially here in Texas, I know that the car dealers have an extremely powerful lobby and a lot of political sway. The other thing that's kind of interesting here in Texas is due to the oil and gas market, some of the oil and gas companies are getting involved as well. And from a legislator's point of view, I would say in general, these direct EV sales to consumer bills are supported by Democrats, but because they're for clean energy and, going green, if you will. Mm-hmm. But actually the bill that was put in front of the Texas legislature this year was actually from a Republican. And from my perspective, this is a consumer choice and a free market issue, which should be supported by all Republicans. But it seems like for whatever reason, they're the ones that tend to be a legislative hurdle.
Yeah, I was going to say, I agree. I mean, it's the same issues in Connecticut. We have a very powerful auto dealerships association, that spends a lot of money, in lobbying to keep EV manufacturers out. It's interesting though, having sat through, committee calls, with our state legislator. I mean, I've sat through 3 8+ hour phone calls where literally I'd be working and I would just have it playing on the screen, listening to these individuals that have been voted into office by, Connecticut residents. It's amazing. Just, I think it's a lack of education, right, on the EV market as a whole. And they don't consider initiatives that our state has put in place and goals and legal obligations that our state has to get to, from cutting our emissions and reducing our emissions. And I don't know if either they're overwhelmed with other things they need to do, or if they just don't care and they kind of take testimony when it's up for committee discussion. They take testimony by dealerships, by companies like Rivian and Tesla who have sat on these calls alongside me, and they take that at face value for what it is rather than trying to research it themselves. Yeah. To me, the state legislature just needs to get on. They need to get up, up to speed.
Okay, so I think that maybe I have some follow-up questions. It's a big topic, but I don't think it's too complex, really, if we get down to it here. But I want to kick it over to Jimmy, because poor Jimmy. Jimmy, just tell me. Don't even have a question. What do you think? I mean, I know you know something. What's your top of mind thought right now as you hear this discussion?
I mean, the top of mind thought, like I was saying before we started recording, is how does this actually protect the consumers when you're narrowing the choice of vehicle that they can buy?
Right.
I mean, the fact that GM gave Cadillac dealers nationwide an out to
Mhm.
not sell EVs anymore is insane to
Like
me.
a money incentive, right?
Oh, like 500.
Yeah.
It was
500 grand per dealership.
500 grand per. Yeah, something
Yeah.
stupid for them to not sell EVs anymore. And yet these auto groups that, you know, and in the lawsuit in particular for Illinois talked about, you know, these family dealers. I mean, you might have like a few family dealers, you know, in some of these smaller towns and cities throughout, you know, Florida, for instance. But the majority of them are all like AutoNation, and it's, you know, these guys that own pretty much, they sell every brand that you can buy in the United States of America. It's, some of these are ridiculous. At what point are you hurting or protecting the consumers by doing this? Like, what is protecting the consumers?
That's just an excuse, in my opinion. And I mean, I understand the point of view that, you know, these car dealerships and all the people that work for them are an important economic driver and force within their communities. But at the same time, they're not going away. They're going to need to adapt, just like all types of businesses have adapted to the way that people want to buy things these days. So it's not like direct EV sales is going to put these guys out of business.
Now, I might need to, before with the YouTube crowd like crucifies us, maybe one of you two can clear up like the GM deal. How did that go?
Yeah. So Cadillac asked the dealers to invest in, I think, certain equipment and certain training to support EVs. And, you know, the dealers that didn't want to make that investment, they said, okay, we'll give you this money to, you know, stop being a Cadillac dealer.
That's what it was. Yep. You can either have money and sail into the sunset, or you can upgrade stuff to basically get with what's coming.
Yeah. Invest and get on board.
Yeah.
But again, like GM's not the only one, right? Like Volvo's announced to sell all EVs by 2030, and I believe they've actually told dealers that they're going to be selling EVs directly online. So I think Volvo dealers are, you know, shaking in their boots because, you know, 2030 is not that far away. And then Volkswagen made all dealers in Germany, as you guys I'm sure are aware, basically signed an agreement saying that they're going to bypass dealers altogether, and dealers are going to act as agents, you know, in the delivery and service process. So in Germany, Volkswagen's cutting all of their dealers out. And I think that's going to be a trend that continues because statistics just show how dealerships, traditional dealerships in the United States, are not selling EVs. I mean, Mercedes canceled the EQC, I think it was, right?
Yep.
Because they had new market information, and I'll guarantee that information just said they're not going to sell it. You know, and you know, but I did also want to just talk on one other thing real quick, if I can go back to your question about, you know, why dealerships have this opposition. I don't really think they have opposition to EVs or companies like Tesla and Rivian. Okay. Like Jimmy, you mentioned a guy in your area that has every car brand. He wants Tesla. He wants to force it. That's the disjointed part, right? Is this minority of states that have these laws in place are trying to force these multi-billion-dollar companies to change their sales strategy. And that's just not going to happen, right? But that's what they're trying to do. I've literally heard them say, I love Tesla, I want a Tesla, and I want to sell them, right? And these dealer, you know, companies like EV and Tesla, or Rivian and Tesla are saying, you know, we want dealerships in your state. They just won't be franchise owned. And that's the problem, right? Okay. So, yeah, I mean, that's the big problem. It's not jobs, you know, it's not growth. It's not going to hurt them. Statistically, I have every single state in the United States statistics of sales, employment, and change in those numbers since 2012 when Tesla was first introduced to the market. Open states have grown across the board. those that are closed are limited in terms of like maybe a limited Tesla to 5 locations or what have you, for the most part have not grown as quickly or have reduced in number of dealerships and employment, what have you. Connecticut's being one of those. Texas, uniquely enough, is not. Texas is the one state that has grown exponentially, being a closed state. But yeah, it's just, franchise dealerships just want to be able to have the ability to sell these vehicles rather than them come in on their own.
One other thing that the dealerships are concerned with is manufacturers that they do business with today potentially trying to bypass them and sell direct to customers. And in every piece of legislation that I have seen, so the proposed here in Texas, the proposed up there in Connecticut, there is protection that if a manufacturer has sold through franchise dealers, that they will not be able to sell direct. It's only for the companies that have a direct sales model that have never sold through franchise dealers that they're trying to allow those sales.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Jimmy, you have something that you were going to put in there?
I just go with like the whole evolve or die.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Like I mentioned last week when we were talking about, the 7 things that we need to see. I mean, Carvana, Vroom, all these new models for, granted they're used cars, but all these new models for buying vehicles, and the dealership can't figure out how to change but still be relevant.
Oh yeah.
Without creating lawsuits, frivolous lawsuits at that, in order to stay relevant.
Exactly. I mean, it's a super bad look. I mean, any of us guys and anyone who's owned any kind of small business, including an ice cream stand, is like, come on, you either, like you said, Jimmy, you evolve or die, and business models and distribution and supply, all that's always going to change. And it's what you expect as an entrepreneur or a business owner, is that like you're going to have to continue to change. And what got you here is what not will get you there. You will always have to keep adapting. What should people like Kyle Schultz be doing in Illinois, and anyone else who's eyeing a Tesla or a Rivian? Who do you call? What do you do?
The place that you absolutely have to start is reaching out to your state legislators and talk to other people that would agree with this, what I think is a very common sense opinion, and have them reach out to their legislators. That really does make a difference. And most of the time, you're not going to be able to speak to your state rep or your senator, but you will speak to their staff, and they do track these things and they do listen. And a lot of the time, the staff rolls it up and presents a report to your representatives on what they're hearing from constituents.
I actually have been very successful in hearing from my legislator by reaching out to them on Twitter, right? Like sending them DMs, and then I actually was able to get in contact with our now transportation chair, through Twitter, and met him at a event that supported, our local bill. I got to see a Lucid Air. I sent pictures to Kyle there, which was the first time they ever showed one in public, so that was really cool. But Twitter's worked really well, and again, it's just, I would say the best thing a consumer can do is educate yourself and become informed and let your friends know, to do the same thing, right to your state legislator. Absolutely.
What are the closed states, just off the top of the head?
So these are closed. Some of them have exceptions to allow Tesla a certain number of locations, right? But these are considered closed states, right, in the U.S. So you have Alabama, Arkansas, Connecticut, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, New Mexico, North Dakota, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Texas, West Virginia, and Wisconsin.
Oh, jeez, I didn't realize it was that many.
Yeah.
But again, like some of these are, that's closed to specifically direct consumer model, right? So some have exceptions built into legislator, and because of Rivian and Lucid and others that are going to be coming to market, they would be on the outskirts. So Tesla operates in, I think I would say roughly about half of those states,
Right.
with the other half completely closed off. So you're driving, out of state to pick up your vehicle.
So I think that's where my mind is kind of has a smaller number, because I know Tesla has gone essentially through that loophole that they didn't have any kind of dealership established before. So there's this loophole where they could go in and get some locations, showrooms and stuff at X amount of locations. And now at least there's a shoe in.
Yeah. I know that there's been interesting stuff going on in Washington State and Michigan as well. And then now this lawsuit in Illinois. And one of the things that I think is interesting about Michigan, Illinois, and Texas in particular is there's Rivian presence, former HQ in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
The Rivian factory is in Illinois.
Yep.
And Tesla is building their newest gigafactory here in Texas,
Austin.
Yeah, which I hope helps with the legislative efforts going on here.
Hey folks, thanks for watching. If you get a chance, please check us out at rivianstories.com. And every like, subscribe, and share helps. Thanks again.